at 5 p.m. right here on this station. On Summons, we study the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, precept by precept. Please join us each weekday at 5 p.m. for Summons right here on KELP.
You are listening to KELP El Paso. Feed your mind, feed your soul at 1590 AM, 95.9 FM. Streaming worldwide at KELPradio.com.
915 Talk is a production of Desert Voice Media. You can visit desertvoice.media to learn more.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world?
From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host,
Episode 283 of 915 Talk. Good afternoon, beautiful citizens of the borderland. This is 915 Talk, and I'm your host, Andy Frecka. Today we are yet again broadcasting from the heart of the world's largest borderplex. We're here at the KELP studio in El Paso, and today we have the incredibly distinct privilege of having Mac Daddy Del Norte on the board. Mac Daddy, how you doing this afternoon?
Hey, Andy, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, man, you know what? I'm feeling a little concerned.
How come?
Well, there are two things in life that are certain.
Mm-hmm.
What are those? Do you know what the two things are?
I know one of them is death.
Yeah, that's true. That's the one I'm concerned about.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Oh, man.
well, I shouldn't be concerned because we're Christian radio.
True,
and,
true.
And we know where we're going, right?
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
but here's the thing, Mac Daddy Del Norte.
Uh-huh.
We know where we're going.
Yes.
We have hope.
Yes.
We have faith. We have a relationship. We know where we're going to spend eternity.
That's correct.
But will we leave
Mm-hmm.
a reasonably peaceful situation for our loved ones?
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. That is so true.
Right?
That is so true.
Well, we have everything kind of set up for them. Hopefully they'll be sad, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Right. Hopefully they'll be sad. But hopefully they'll also be like, well, Dad figured out some stuff to take care of us.
Yeah, yeah.
At least he took care of some paperwork.
There you go.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about probate. We're going to be talking about powers of attorney, wills, all those good things.
Okay.
So to do that, we have a very special guest with us.
Uh-huh.
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 Do you know why he's special?
Yeah, because he is the unique expression of an endlessly creative God.
Yes, he is the unique expression of an endlessly creative God. Also, you might find this to be interesting. He is your colleague.
Oh, how so?
He also plays guitar in a worship band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Right on.
I think he plays just in one worship band. You play in like 7 worship bands.
Yeah, right.
We'll have
Just plays in one.
We'll have to find out what kind of guitar he uses because
Cool.
sometimes it's hard for me to focus on worship because he has some pretty fancy guitars back there.
I do, and I have a new fancy one that I haven't used.
Oh, man.
I can't wait to use it.
So today we're going to be talking about all of these legal things attached to really one of the most probably the most emotionally charged point of our lives. It's when we head on to eternity. So we're going to jump right into it. Today we will have the phone lines open. The number's 915-779-0016. If folks have questions about wills, powers of attorney, all that good stuff, 915-779-0016. Also, I hasten to add that nothing in this broadcast is in any way meant to replace the advice you'll get from a licensed professional who understands the specifics of your situation. This is for informational purposes only. So without further ado, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome to the one, the only, Mr. David Bonilla. David, welcome to 915 Talk.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, so we have a lot to jump into. But before we get into all that, tell us about being on your church's worship band. You're at Calvary Chapel on Zaragoza.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so tell me about that.
Well, I've been on there for about 20 years now, and I love it. It's just something that I really get to enjoy. I get to enjoy the praise and worship, and I get to just spend some time between me and God and just enjoy some of the music and the camaraderie with everybody.
Okay, so are we electric guitar, rhythm, acoustic? What
Electric.
Electric. I think it's hard for the electric guitar player sometimes not to steal the show. Do you ever struggle with that?
You have restraint.
Yeah, practice restraint, right? Yeah, Mac Denny Del Norte. I've seen him a few times. He rips off some riffs, and he does a fantastic job. But I love Calvary Chapel on Zaragoza. We were chatting before we went on air. I was able to visit some time ago. We weren't sure exactly when, but it was what a great church community and love. Even as we're about to jump into this conversation about law and all that. Just this idea that on the weekends you're there just praising the Lord. That's super cool.
It is very cool.
Yeah. All right. So a lot to talk about. And I realize that there's probably like a big overarching question. Is the name of everything we're about to talk about, is it probate law, or is it, because we're going to be talking about power of attorneys, is that like a different part of law, or what is the name of all this?
Yes. So basically, preparing is the estate planning portion.
Okay.
That's when you're preparing your powers of attorneys and some other documents. Probate is actually after the person has passed.
Okay.
And you're settling the estate and the different ways to go about it.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about estate planning, which is pre-death.
Correct.
And probate, which is after. Correct?
That is exactly right.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start off with the estate planning side. Powers of attorney, maybe some mistakes you've seen made, some tips and tricks. I don't know. From your side of the desk, what do you see?
Well, a lot of times it's very important, first of all, to get those documents done. You don't realize, unfortunately, until it's too late, that you needed them. There's a variety of documents, and there's a variety of reasons that we use them. One of the most important things I'll tell you as we get started is to always make sure that you talk to your attorney. Unfortunately, we have a big community that believes that here in El Paso, notarios are something different in Mexico.
Okay, notarios would be notary public.
Right, but
in Mexico.
In Mexico, they're almost like attorneys. So they are able to do powers of attorney, they're able to do wills, they're able to do all of those things. But that is not the function of a notary public here. The function of a notary.
So interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So I lived overseas for quite a while, and the notaries in those countries were also very, very close. I mean, the amount of training they had to have, and they were really almost like an attorney. But that's not the function here in the United States.
Right, that's correct. A lot of times here, basically what the function of a notary public is to verify the person's identity and have them swear that who they are, and acknowledge that swearing.
Right, and just it's their signature, not someone else, and that's kind of it, right?
That's true. That's
okay.
right.
All right. So are you saying that sometimes people will be here and they'll just go to the notary and have them notarize it, and they think that they have a full legal document?
Right. Or the notary will prepare it, and there's a lot of problems sometimes with those documents because a lot of them are cut and paste, and a lot of what they're putting in there may not be applicable. And so it's something that you have to be really careful with.
Right. Well, I think that's kind of along the same lines of online wills.
Right.
What do you have to say about wills that you can put together on the internet? Often free of charge.
Right. The problem with the online wills is most of the time, and I'm going to say most of the time, it's not the actual form itself. It's the execution of the form and how it needs to be done.
Okay. So what does that mean?
That means
what does that look like?
Well, like for example, in Texas, you have to have 2 disinterested witnesses. That means if I do a will, I can't have my wife sign as a witness. I can't have my daughter sign as a witness because they are interested in what I am leaving them.
Sure.
So those are some of the problems that you run into. You print out the form, you don't know exactly, does it have everything that it's supposed to have for my situation? And am I following the requisites that are required in Texas?
Right. I think part of it too is the form will give you a long list of questions, but maybe you don't know what questions are important. Whereas human intelligence, licensed attorney would know what some of those questions are.
Right. And a lot of times what you see in these wills is, things that are not applicable being put in there when you really didn't need them.
Right. What would an example of that be?
Children with a bunch of blanks if you've never had children. Or
gotcha.
just stuff that may not be applicable that you're
Right.
saying, okay, why is this even in here?
Okay. And then what happens when a document like this, because it still is a document,
Right.
when it goes to probate?
Right. So that's where the tough part comes in. Okay. So the document has to be accepted. It has to be probated, and the court has to accept it as a valid will. And that's where all of those intricacies come in. The two disinterested witnesses, when did they sign? Where did they sign? A lot of these things are basically what the attorney will guide you in. For example, in my office, and I know in most attorneys' offices, we have signing ceremonies. We have our witnesses. We have our notary. You sign the notary book. You swear that you are over age 18. The witnesses are there to confirm that you're of sound mind. And, we'll talk a little bit to make sure they understand that, and that your wishes in the will are accurately being laid out there, and that is truly what you want. So there's a little bit of a ceremony that goes to make sure that the individual that is signing understands what they're signing, and that reflects what their wishes are upon their death.
Right. And what you're doing is creating a more airtight situation for probate.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And let's talk about, I guess, nightmare scenarios. What does it look like when it's not airtight and it goes into probate? What paint a picture for us?
Well, see, that there's a variety of things that can happen. Worst case scenario is the will is not even going to be admitted.
Okay.
Okay. Or the will be admitted, but it doesn't dispose of everything. Okay. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you have a house and you say, I'm going to give this house to my wife.
Okay.
And you do the form will, right? And that's all you put in there. And when you pass, that will is good. If you did it with the two disinterested witnesses, notary, the whole works, that will pass the house over to your wife.
Okay.
But a lot of wills, especially on form, excuse me,
Yeah, you're good.
do not have a residual clause.
Okay.
That residual clause is very important. That basically says all of the rest, residue, and remainder of my estate. So if you don't have that clause, that's the catch-all. That picks up the car that you bought last week. That picks up the land that you bought last week. So if you have a will that says, I'm going to give my house to my wife, and that's all it says.
And it doesn't say the residuals, the residue,
Right.
which is an amusing word.
Yeah, right. The residue, which, that's a problem because now you have what's called a partial intestacy. You have a will that's partially good,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be good for
Like
everything.
Right. Your wife gets the house, but then you have some pretty serious property that's not included.
Right. So now it comes down to the intestacy. When I mean by intestacy, that's basically, intestacy means that's the legal term for passing away without a will.
Okay.
And so what happens is the code in Texas dictates who gets your property if you do not have a will.
Okay.
So if you have a will, the basic tenet is you are able to do with your property whatever you want.
Okay.
You can give it to whoever you want. You can
Right.
designate whoever you want as beneficiaries, executors, all of this thing. But if you don't have a will, then the law is going to dictate to you what happens. And that is a scary conversation that I will tell you I have at least once a week, and it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because a lot of people do not know that if you have multiple marriages or You know, your spouse may not get that house entirely. And most people do not know that. So let's say, I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say an individual gets married and they have 2 children from their first marriage. Okay? And then let's say they get married again and they don't have any children from their second marriage because they were older now, and they buy a house with their second wife. That is a community property house.
Okay.
If that person passes away and they do not have a will, their children from the first marriage will be their community share owners of that house along with the second wife.
Okay.
So you can imagine what a disaster that is already.
Well, yeah, I mean, talk about a relationship drama,
Right.
to say the least.
The good thing is in Texas is that the surviving spouse has the right to live there in the house for the rest of their life.
Okay.
But they're not going to own 100%. And that's what people do not like to be told about their house. It's hard to have to tell somebody, I'm sorry, but you are not going to own this house that you and your husband bought entirely by yourself.
Right. Okay. And when you get into that kind of situation, I hear these, I mean, to me, it sounds crazy. To you, it's probably all in a day's work. But when you don't have a will, when you have maybe multiple ex-spouses, I've heard probate just goes on for a really long time.
It can.
Okay.
It can, and that's where, you know, most of the wills will avoid most of the problems, especially when they're drafted by an attorney and they're done at a good time.
Okay.
Now
What do you mean by a good time?
Okay, well, I was hoping you were going to ask that. So, and this is really difficult because here's where you can understandably see where the fights come in. If you're on your deathbed at the hospital and you decide to do a will
Okay.
2 days before you pass, the capacity issue comes in.
Right. Are you of sound mind?
Right. And see, that's where it can get a little tricky. It's always good to do your planning in advance. I mean, it's better to do your planning at any time. It's never too late to do your planning. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you don't have capacity, it's too late.
Right.
But a lot of times, that's where the fights come in. The fights come in with what's called, you know, capacity. Did the person really understand what they were doing? Were they on medication?
Right.
What was the environment? Where were they at? Were
Sure.
they, you know, conscious? Undue influence. You know, there's somebody whispering in mom's ear, you need to leave all the property to me.
Oh.
You know, and so an attorney, what they're going to do is they're going to isolate you to make sure that those issues do not come up. They're going to say, okay, you know, we're going to sign this will, but nobody is coming into this room except you, me, and our witnesses, and they're disinterested witnesses. So you're trying to control the environment as best as you can.
Okay. All right. And what I don't know if you would have an exact number for this, but what is the longer length of time you've seen probate go in your experience?
I'm trying to remember, but 8 years, 10 years, it depends.
Right. And in that situation, let's say there's a house involved or cars.
Right.
What actually happens with that property during that time?
So it depends. A lot of times what the court's going to do, if there's a fight between parties,
Yeah.
okay, the kids and the spouse or something like that, it depends on what's going on with the asset. If the house is totally empty and the cars are just sitting there, the court can appoint an administrator,
Okay.
a third-party administrator, and that's somebody that comes in and manages the estate or manages the problems while the parties fight. This third party is somebody that the court trusts that's going to sell the property, put the money in the court, and is going to take care of everything until the issues of who does this belong to get resolved.
So the fighting parties aren't all living in the house or something like that.
Right. So usually they're not, but sometimes they are. which makes it a little awkward.
Right.
But like we said, the surviving spouse has the right to live in her house.
Right.
Now, if the kids weren't already there, they can't go and live there. She has the right to live there exclusively. And the kids from the first marriage, like we talked about, can't come over, knock on the door, and say, by the way, here we're moving in. That doesn't happen. They're not allowed to do that.
All right. If you're just joining us, we're with David Bonilla. He's a probate attorney here in El Paso. He's also guitarist at Calvary Chapel, El Paso, up on Zaragoza. Fun fact about David: we're talking about estate planning. We're talking about probate law. The phone lines are open: 915-779-0016. If you have a question for David, we do need to take a break. Before we go into the break, this is your daily reminder that 915 Talk is listener supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. The website is just that, desertvoice.media. You can go there, click on that 915 Talk link, and listen to this or any previous 915 Talk conversation. Thank you to each and every one of you who join us on this educational journey as we learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory. We're going to go into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
915 Talk is listener supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. That's right. It's people just like you who make this program possible. Together with Desert Voice, you can learn how to better serve our neighbors and pray for our community. To be a Desert Voice Media partner, you can visit desertvoice.media. That's right. That's the website, desertvoice.media. Take a look and join us today in reaching our borderland for Christ.
This is Pastor Steve Castrita. I'd like to extend the invitation for you to join us in service every Saturday at 5 p.m. at Redeeming Grace Church, El Paso. We are located at 2400 George Dieter inside Iglesia Philadelphia. We're a young church on the east side of El Paso with no smoke, no lasers, and no gimmicks, just the uncompromising Word of God and a call to win the 915 for Jesus Christ. We'd love to meet you and your family. God bless you, and thank you for listening to KELP.
915.
Testify.
For a long time, I really did not like reading the Bible. I didn't find a reason to do it. I would not make time in my day for it. I just found it kind of pointless. Until recently. I was in the Philippines on a mission trip, and while I was there, I met a small kid, probably 13 years old, and I asked him, what do you do for fun around here? He lived in the jungle, so there wasn't a lot. But he told me, I go down to the library and I read the Bible, and that impacted me so hard, because I was like, wow. This guy has a drive for Jesus. He's hungry for Jesus. I need to be like that. And that's why I have started reading the Bible. It's really inspired me to read more and to get more into God's Word. My name is Wesley, and if God did this for me, He can do it for you.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb
And by the word of their testimony.
Desertvoice.media.
We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
We are back, and you are listening to 915 Talk. Today we have with us David Bonilla, probate estate planning attorney here in El Paso. And as I mentioned before we went to the break, we do have the phone lines open, and right now we have David on the phone, so we have two Davids. David, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm all right. How you guys doing?
Doing all right. What question do you have for us?
So I'm a licensed real estate agent, and every once in a while I run into clients who want to pass on their inheritance to their children or their home. What advice would you give me to hand off to them if I'm ever in that situation? Because usually I see a lot of properties go to, not I can't say it's a high percentage, but a small percentage of them, they don't take care of the property, or they get back behind on the taxes. I usually tell them it's not a good idea. It's better to put in like a trust where someone's managing the property, or just to outright sell it. What advice would you give me to give to them?
Well, a trust and a will kind of do different things. I think that a will's going to be fine. If there's a lot of beneficiaries, to me, I believe that it's a good idea to have the executor sell the property and distribute the proceeds. A lot of times, if the executor just turns around and deeds the property over to the 4 or 5 beneficiaries, you can have problems, because if one of them doesn't want to be an owner, or just decides he wants to go live there rent free, the next legal step is a partition to force the sale of the property. So I do like a clean finish to be able to sell everything and distribute it. But a lot of what goes into that is how many children are there, and what are their plans. Do you want them to own the house, or do they live here in El Paso, or is it just best to sell the house and distribute the proceeds?
Okay. But I've heard that if you were to do a deed of trust while you're living to whoever you're going to pass on the house to, the capital gains are defined differently, as opposed to if you wait till the individual passes away and then you go to probate and have the person inherit the house. As long as it's under a certain amount of money that the person inherits, then there's no capital gains to the person.
Okay, so basically what happens, and I want to try and get into this briefly because it gets a little complicated, is when you're talking about a deed of trust, you're talking more about a ladybird deed or a transfer on death deed, something that transfers the property without the necessity of going to probate. So what's real important to understand is the basis, okay? So the basis of your house is the cost that you pay to buy that house. So for example, when you buy a $20 share stock and you sell it for $50, you get a 1099 for $50. But the difference is what your actual gain was, the $30, because that $20 is your basis. That is what was used. That's what you paid for that stock. The house works the same way. So you have what's called the cost basis when you buy it. If you give a gift deed to your child of that house, you are passing on the basis that you have. So if they turn around and you bought that house, 30, 40 years ago for $50,000, and they sell it for $200,000, there's going to be a $150,000 capital gain. Anything that goes through a transfer on death deed, a ladybird deed, or a will, or a trust gets what's called a stepped-up basis. That means that the basis becomes the fair market value at the date of death. So if it is sold a reasonable time after the date of death, there's no gain.
Right. Which is better than them to put them on the will while they're still alive to make it smoother when they do pass away. The people say, well, let me just add my son or daughter onto the deed, because if I pass, I want them to struggle with transferring all the paperwork over to me. But then there's the capital gains of what was the fair market value when they bought it, and what is the value now, as opposed to the ladybird deed.
Okay, but remember also, let's say mom decides to put her son on the title because she wants him to be in there. Unless they do a survivorship agreement, she's only giving son half. Her half still goes through her estate. So she has to do some type of survivorship agreement if she wants that house to go to her son when she passes, or to put it in a will. But just putting somebody with your name on it, on the deed, that doesn't necessarily transfer your share upon death.
So then, as you said earlier, you got to do a will, and in the state of Texas, there has to be two non-interested parties that witness you signing the will.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, David, I hope that answers at least the front end of your question. Appreciate your call today. We do have another call on the line. I will mention, just because a lot of this can get pretty detailed, that David has a practice here in El Paso. You can look up David Bonilla, attorney at law. It's dbonillaw.com. But David, thank you so much for your call today.
Thank you.
Yep. And now we have Iram on the phone. Iram, good to hear your voice again. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course. What's your question?
So, I guess, what is the recommendation of the attorney as far as doing a will? Is it always going with an attorney, and how early in life?
Okay. So, yes, number one, you should. The way I try and explain this is this. Your will is disposing of all the property that you've accumulated throughout your work life. And so most wills aren't really that expensive. So you need to keep into account that you want to make sure that it gets done right, because this is something that can be very, very difficult on your family if things aren't done right. So early, I mean, sadly, I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen very young people pass away at 18 years old, 20 years old that own property, all the way to 80s and 90s. Your will can always be amended, revoked. You can always change it. It's a good idea to do one because we never really know what's going to happen and when. But I think once you've got your family settled, I think you need to start looking at talking to somebody about preparing a will to have in case anything happens to you.
And for somebody so I was kind of thinking of my mom, and she has property in New Mexico and Texas. Would that mean that she would have to do like two, or how does that work when somebody has property in two states?
No, you don't. You could just do one will in one state, depends where her primary residence is. But like, for example, here in El Paso, a lot of people have houses in Ruidoso or that area, and they do their will here, and then they can dispose of the property in New Mexico through their will. For probate purposes, you'd have to get a small ancillary probate done in New Mexico, but you can dispose of your property in that same will. Where it gets a little tricky is that trying to dispose of property in Mexico. Mexico is such a big part of El Paso, and that's where it gets really hairy.
Okay. Iram, any properties in Mexico?
Actually, my mom does.
Wow.
her situation is very, I guess, maybe challenging because she has a house with my stepfather in New Mexico, and that's where they live in Chaparral. But then my mom has a house before she got married, and my stepfather has a house also in El Paso, Texas, before, so they both have a house before, and now they have a house together. And my mom does own a house in Juarez, and my stepfather owns a piece of land in real close to Juarez. So, yeah, it's a complicated situation, but my mom has talked to us, and she's not too old, and her health is not that bad, but she's nearing 80, and she wants my siblings and I to be owners of, what she has, and not my stepfather. And so, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. So...
That's a good time to go talk to an attorney, because I will tell you, from my understanding, in New Mexico, if a property is held as joint tenants, that's basically construed to be as right of survivorship. So that property could pass to your stepfather if it's held as joint tenants in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Iram, I hope that answers at least the front part of your questions. Appreciate the call today.
That's helpful. Thank you.
All right. God bless.
Bye-bye, Iram.
Bye-bye. And we're back today. We're with David Bonilla, probate attorney, estate planning attorney. We're getting, the calls are coming in, so I'm going to introduce you like you're lucha libre wrestler extraordinaire in the ring.
You forgot the guitar player.
Right. That's right. That's right. Worship guitar player at Calvary Chapel. Yeah. Super fun.
Title.
Yeah. That's amazing. We are also on YouTube. 915 Talk is the channel. We got a shout out from my good friend Joe Hankins. He says, KELP is God sent. Love those comments. Good to hear from you, Joe. Again, if anyone has questions today for David concerning probate, estate planning, all those things, the number is 915-779-0016. In a minute, we're going to have our traffic update, David, but just kind of briefly, you touched on a really big issue. Folks who have parents who are relatives who have property in Mexico.
Right.
Maybe in simple terms, what is the complication?
Well, the complication is that there has to be an ancillary probate. So a lot of times, to make it easier and less expensive, I will tell my client to get a will done in Mexico that distributes only the Mexican property and the property that's in Mexico.
Okay.
And do one in the United States that is only for property held in the United States. Because what happens is when you cross countries, you're going to have to get that will translated. You're going to have to get it apostillado, which is like special notarization.
Right.
You have to get it brought here, and you have to ask the court to accept that will here.
Right. Okay. So kind of two separate wills, one for America and one for Mexico.
Yes.
And you said the one in Mexico should cover the Mexican property. Should the one in the United States also cover Mexican property?
Yes. No. Well, you probably can, but if they did that, they would probably have to take it over there. Now, I've never had one with property over there that was done. So, but I would anticipate what's going to happen is an ancillary probate. You would take the will here, you would translate it, and take it to Mexico.
Okay. Again, your website is dbonillalaw.com, as in David, dbonillalaw.com. Again, I love having these conversations. As we say, every day we're on an educational journey, but we also are Christian radio, and a big part of what Scripture teaches us is to be wise stewards of what the Lord has entrusted us with in this life. And part of being a wise steward is taking care of the paperwork, even though it's might be difficult to have these conversations. And I'm sure you've been in more than a few emotionally charged discussions in your time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But like you said, we're called to be good stewards, and that's really what we need to do. We need to plan. We need to prepare to avoid passing on problems to our families and trying to make things as smooth as possible for them.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're doing. What would be your word of advice? It sounds like Iram, in his situation, he's talking to his mother. It's an open communication. But what would you say to people who might have parents who don't seem to want to talk about it? Do you have any, this is not a family counseling session, but you've probably been in a few. What would your word of advice be?
Broach the subject. You want to make sure that your parents have their legal documents in place.
Yeah.
Especially depending on the family situation. If you have children from, multiple relationships or multiple marriages and stuff, it's really always a good idea to have that conversation, even if it's a difficult one, because it's something that we are all going to face at one point or another. And the best way to face it is when it's easy.
Yeah. Okay. And now we have Charlie 1 on the phone. Charlie 1, what are you seeing out on the roads this afternoon?
Few things. I want to go first to the far east side, Loop 375 south in Montana. We have a crash here. But I see the cars. I can only catch it from a distance, but I see the cars in single file there. That's Loop 375 south in Montana. So caution there. And then also in Fort Bliss, Sergeant Major and Old Ironsides, we have a crash working far east side of Montana in Rich Beam. Not finished up with that crash. Happened a while ago, but not finished up with that one. But really stacked up. You're bumper to bumper right now. I-10 East Cotton all the way through Spaghetti Bowl area. It's just tight traffic. That afternoon commute is going to get you there. I-10 East, Piedras, Copia area. Andy, back to you.
Charlie 1, this afternoon we have with us an attorney. He specializes in probate, estate planning, and I think that these can be difficult discussions within a family, especially if maybe mom and dad aren't ready to get that estate plan together. But one way to maybe make that conversation a little easier would be around a bowl of menudo. Where would you recommend the family find that bowl of menudo?
Well, you can find that in Delicious at Eastside Choice Meats, Lubanan and Traywood, because they have those, it's homemade menudo, freshly made. They put it in containers, and in the refrigerator, you just go and pick it up, put it in your refrigerator, and whenever you want to eat it, maybe early in the morning, maybe for lunch, it's really good, tasty, spicy, a little bit spicy, but not too spicy. If I can eat it, anybody can eat it. But it's very tasty, delicious at Eastside Choice Meats, Lubanan and Traywood. Andy?
Thank you, Charlie 1. We'll talk soon.
You bet.
And we're back with David Bonilla. We're talking about estate planning. We're talking about probate. And the phone lines are open, 915-779-0016. David, let's talk about powers of attorney. Give us an overview and maybe some mistakes you've seen over the years.
Okay. All right. So just quickly, so everybody understands, the really important thing to understand about powers of attorney is they are valid while the person is alive.
Okay.
When the person passes, those powers of attorney are no longer valid.
Right.
Okay. So you're talking about generally a statutory durable power of attorney, which is a financial power of attorney.
Okay.
Believe it or not, it's called statutory because it's actually in the code book, in the law. This is what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And it gives you real estate transactions, tax transactions, all of these options. Mm-hmm. And then it says all of the above, and you're supposed to put your initials in there and sign in front of a notary and all stuff. One of the issues that I've seen, and this is, signing it with somebody that doesn't know, is if you do not initial all of the above or any of those, it's no good. Oh. You have to give some powers. That's what the whole purpose of the power of attorney is, right? So if you're just signing the back and notarizing everything and not paying attention to what is in there, you've signed a document that legally passes no powers.
Okay.
Then you have a medical power of attorney. The financial power of attorney, of course, is for all your finances, for bank accounts, for transferring property, your house, your cars, tax matters, estate issues, all of that stuff. The medical power of attorney is for medical decisions. It allows somebody to make medical decisions when you're not able to. So all of these powers can be made effective immediately if you're older and you just want some help, or they could be effective upon finding of an incapacity. When you are now incapacitated, the powers of attorney come into play. You also have what's called a directive to physicians.
Right.
That is actually, that document is deciding whether you wish to be kept alive by artificial means. Mm-hmm. A lot of times what that does is that solidifies your wishes and your desires, because although the person who has a medical power of attorney can make decisions for that person, if you're making a decision for your mom and your siblings do not agree, it becomes a problem. It's a lot easier to say, these are mom's wishes. She's got them here. She does not wish to be kept alive artificially. Mm-hmm. So that's usually something that helps relieve the family of the burden of having to make that decision.
Right. But because really what you're saying in that situation is, this is not my decision.
Right.
This was mom's decision.
Exactly.
I'm acting on her behalf.
Right. And if you look at the title, Directive to Physicians, you're directing the doctor as to what you want done if these cases should apply.
Right.
So it's not even up telling your family, this is what I want. You're telling the doctor, I do not want to be kept alive artificially.
Right. Yeah, I find this to be so interesting because there are so many details. And again, I think this is the danger of internet law, I'll call it, is you will look up an internet search, you'll find one power of attorney, it looks good. It's what we're talking about. We sign it, we get it notarized. Again, as you said at the beginning of the program, the notary is not an attorney in the United States. In Mexico, they're almost on that level. Right. But here in the United States, they're just confirming it's you.
Correct.
And you're not maybe asking all the questions. So I've seen it myself where a family's in the hospital and they thought they had certain rights from their power of attorney, but they didn't have all of them.
Right. That happens. That's part of the reason sometimes it's just good to sit down with somebody when you have time and in advance to just make sure you have your questions answered and somebody that's going to follow your wishes and help you get to where you want to get.
Right. And you brought up, I guess it's maybe obvious, except for when you don't think about it, the power of attorney only works when the person is alive.
Right. And there's a reason for that. So what happens, and best way that I can explain this is if you take the power of attorney to the bank and you tell them, hey, mom passed away, I'm the agent of the power of attorney, I want to take this account, they're going to freeze that account immediately.
Right.
Okay. Because really a power of attorney is saying, look, I'm authorizing you, my loved one, to make decisions for me, but that doesn't mean I want you to have everything if something should happen to me. There's a difference. You're there to help me make decisions because I trust you. I trust in your judgment, and I think you would be the best person to make decisions.
But it's not your money.
But it's not your money. That's right. It's my money.
Right.
And you're there to help me pay my bills when I can't pay them,
right,
or go to the bank for me when I can't go. Mm-hmm. And if something happens to me, that money that's in the bank is not all for you.
Right. Okay. So, I have also seen families who confused up the power of attorney, and like you said, once the person's passed, the power of attorney has lost its power.
Yes.
It's over. Okay. Again, just maybe briefly I would say for someone who has a relative who's, I guess, close to end of life, what are the power of attorneys you would recommend them having in advance for that, for their care?
I mean, I would think that all of them, the medical power of attorney is always good to allow somebody to make medical decisions. The thing about a medical power of attorney is it's a good idea for you to tell your agent, the person who's going to be making decisions for you, what it is that you do not want. So, for example, you can put certain things in the medical power of attorney, but you can also tell your agent, you know what, I don't want a blood transfusion, or I don't want this, or I don't want that.
Right.
And that agent is bound by what your wishes are.
Yeah.
Okay. But if they don't know, then it's going to be what is in your best interest. That's going to be the standard. I'm going to do what's in mom's best interest because she cannot tell me what it is that.
But
she
what
wants.
is in your best interest is not decided by your loved ones. It's probably by the doctors.
Right. And that's usually what happens is the doctor's going to advise you and you're going to make a decision.
Okay. Yeah, and that puts a lot of pressure on you, to say the least.
It does. And sometimes, that's why you might need a second opinion. Say, like, I want somebody else to take a look at her, and then I'll make a decision.
Okay. All right. Again, we're with David Bonilla. He's a probate attorney, estate planning attorney here in El Paso. Phone lines are open. We have about 10 minutes left in the program, so there is time for another call, maybe two. 915-779-0016. Earlier on in the program, David Flores called in. He's a real estate agent, and he was talking about his clients will ask for advice on all these things, and he brought up the whole idea of trust. Can you speak into that?
Sure. Trusts are good. I think there's a big push to do trusts right now to avoid probate. I don't think that trusts are necessarily something that's going to be something that you need to do. First of all, they're expensive, and most people don't need a trust. There's a proper place for a trust depending on what you want to do, but a lot of times with good planning, a will is a good thing. What a lot of people don't realize is when you do a trust, there is a will that comes with the trust.
Okay.
Okay. And that will is called a pour-over will, because what happens is when you have a trust, it's kind of like having a little corporation, right? You have to fund it. You put your house in the trust. You put your car in the trust. You put all of these things in the trust. So then you sign the trust, and the trust is good. But what happens is life goes on, right? You go buy another car. You go buy another property. You go buy something else. If you didn't put these into the trust, you need to probate that will, because that will is what grabs those other articles, those other properties, to put them in the trust for distribution.
Oh, so this is the part of the program where I make sure I do a self quiz to make sure I understood what you're saying. So what you're saying is you have a trust, and the normal thing to put in there would be your house, your main possessions, maybe a car. But what you can do is actually, as you add items, you can just make those items, whatever they are, property, they can be willed back into that trust.
That's right. That's right. It's a pour-over will. It basically picks everything up. Or if you remember, you can put them in the trust immediately when you buy them.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes if, you're not going to avoid probate sometimes with having a trust. It just depends on what you do. I always think a will is great. A will has that catch-all phrase that we talked about, that residual, and it picks everything up.
Okay.
I think one of the things that I just wanted to mention briefly is one of the ways I get a lot of questions of how do you avoid probate? How can I go about not having to go through this?
Right.
It is a little bit of an expense, and it is a little bit time consuming. There's a lot of things that you can do. Number one, your bank accounts. If you haven't looked at your bank card in a long time, there's a payable on death designation. You can go to your bank and you say, I want to see my account card. I want to see who I've designated as a beneficiary. And you can name that person whoever you wish, and you can also name an alternate beneficiary. What happens is when you pass, all they have to do is take your death certificate, and that account now becomes yours. You can do that with your 401ks, retirement, life insurance, anything like that. Most people do not know that the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles has a form for a beneficiary designation for your car.
Okay.
You can actually fill it out and send it to the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, and if you pass away, that car will be transferred to who you want.
And so that form would be not, so you don't need a will for your car, is what you're saying.
Right. Now, the will would pick everything up, like we
Right.
talked about, but you can plan on your own to try and avoid it. You always should have your will, because if you forget something, I've had a lot of situations that you weren't expecting. So, for example, when you're planning, you're going to plan for your wife and your children. You're going to consider all of these things, right? But if you have a sibling who's not married and they don't have children and they pass, you're their heir. And that was something that you were not expecting.
Okay.
So your will would pick that up.
Oh.
Because of that residual clause.
Okay.
It picks that up. So you can plan as best you can, but it's always good to have the will as like the safety net, like in the circus, to make sure it catches everything that falls.
Right. Okay. And I'm glad I remembered to ask this. We live in this crazy, beautiful borderplex on the border. We're two states, two nations, and of course, we are the most bilingual city in America. Tell us where the whole language thing comes into all of this.
Right. So a lot of times we'll get people that will come and we'll talk about doing a will or powers of attorney, and they'll talk to me and they'll say, well, are these in Spanish? No, they're not going to be in Spanish. If you're going to use them here, most of the time they're going to be in English.
Okay.
So a lot of times it's a good idea to have somebody in your office who speaks Spanish fluently, or the attorney speaks Spanish fluently, to where they can sit down with the client and explain to them what it is they're signing. Because if anything else, when you file a will for probate, the will needs to be in English. So if you do it in Spanish, it's going to have to be translated, but it would still need to be signed and everything else. So you would have to do an English one and put it in there. So a lot of times people will expect the documents to be in Spanish, and we usually explain to them that they're in English.
Okay. All right. And what I'm hearing you say is it's best for everything just to be made in English, signed in English, and for the person to understand what they're signing.
Yes, correct. Definitely need to understand what you're signing.
Well, yeah,
all
of
the
course,
time.
of course. But is that better than actually signing something in Spanish and having it translated?
Yes. I think a lot of times that's why you've got to go to somebody that you trust, an attorney who's licensed, who's somebody that's there, that is their job. Their job is to make sure you're their client. It's just like a doctor. You're there to make sure that they understand what they're doing. You're there to explain everything to their satisfaction so that they feel comfortable in anything that they're doing.
Okay. Yeah. And I liked your smile when I said, so they should make sure they know what they're signing. Yes. Yes. But it does become a special challenge if maybe their English is a little rough or whatever the situation would be.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I've had people say, well, Mom signed this, but Mom didn't speak English. Well, who's the attorney that did it? Well, he's a Spanish-speaking attorney. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure he explained everything to her.
Okay.
So that can become an issue.
Does that come up in court?
I haven't had it come up in court yet, but it's going to come up in one that I have.
Okay, gotcha. So I assume that's a situation where a family member's just saying they're not getting what they want, and they're like, well, he didn't understand what he was doing. Or
Exactly.
She. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, well, it's so important to understand these details because they aren't details. They're not small. They have incredibly huge consequences, but there's so many moving parts to all of this.
And there is, and that's why it's good to talk to somebody who understands what they're doing, and that you can actually tell them what your situation is and tell them what you want to do so they can guide you, because that's what they're there to do, is to guide you into doing what will work best for you.
Okay. All right. David, let's get your information out there. Can we do that?
Sure.
dbonillaw.com. Phone number 915-594-9952.
That's correct.
All right. 915-594-9952. 9952. I just want to say that there's not some agreement for these guests coming on the program. I just love being able to share with our community that what is really important, as we talked about before, the idea of stewardship and connecting them with good people. And so that's why we have these conversations. We want our listeners to be informed and make great life decisions.
And I appreciate that, because that is one of those things that, like we said, you know, when there's families and children from a prior relationship, it is so important to make sure that your family is protected and that your spouse is protected the way you want her to be.
Okay. All right. So, David, you're of course, the attorney. We've been talking about that the whole hour. You're the guitar player at Calvary Chapel, El Paso, over on Zaragoza.
One of them. There's a couple.
Okay. Well, you're on the radio, so just say I'm the one. No, just kidding. But at the beginning of this program, in the intro, you're born and raised in El Paso. This is your hometown. Yes. At the beginning of the program, we say the world is looking at El Paso. What will we say to the world? And the reason we have that there is because when I moved to El Paso, I found it to be interesting how something would happen in El Paso and the correspondent would fly in from New York City, be on the ground, it felt like, for 10 minutes, and then tell everyone what's happening here.
Right.
So with that in mind, what is one thing you would want the world to know about your hometown?
The people are great.
Uh-huh.
Friendly people. The food is great. That's why we're still here.
Okay. Good people, good food.
Yes.
And if
exactly.
you could pray one prayer for your hometown, what would that prayer be?
Just that the Lord be with us, that he guide us in everything that's going on. It's such a difficult time right now. And so we just want the Lord to be with us and to guide us and to be with El Paso.
All right. Well, David, again, thank you so much for coming on today. I feel like we could have talked 2-3 more hours. There's so much to talk about with this, but very good to connect with you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, as we always say, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and I'm going to add today, let's be good stewards and give God all the glory. This has been 915 Talk. You have been listening to 915 Talk, a production of Desert Voice